Switzerland is easy to admire. What's harder is imagining yourself actually living there. Not because the country is closed off or because it feels unsafe, but because many of the things that make Switzerland feel almost perfect are also the things that make it difficult to enter. Clean streets, reliable trains, high salaries, political stability, a standard of living that many countries spend decades trying to reach. From the outside, Switzerland can look less like a country dealing with the problems of modern life and more like one that somehow learned how to manage them. But that image comes with a cost. Recent cost of living indexes keep pointing to the same thing. Swiss cities sit near the top of global cost of living lists. So, for many people, Switzerland is not just expensive to visit, it can be expensive to belong to. And that changes the question. This is not just about why Switzerland costs so much. It's about why a country that looks so close to perfect can feel so far out of reach. To understand why Switzerland can feel so difficult to reach, we first have to look at how that sense of order was built. Switzerland did not become stable simply because it stayed peaceful. Its neutrality was not just a moral position, it was also a survival strategy. Switzerland did not develop in isolation. For centuries, its history was shaped by the larger powers around it: the Holy Roman Empire, the Habsburgs, the Duchy of Burgundy, France, and Austria. It was small, mountainous, and caught between forces much larger than itself. So instead of building its strength through expansion, Switzerland developed a different kind of strength: the ability to resist, to endure, and to make invasion as costly as possible. This is the Switzerland that does not appear on postcards. The image most people have of Switzerland is built around order, stability, and diplomatic neutrality. But behind that image is another history: armed neutrality, military preparedness, and a deep adaptation to its terrain. Switzerland is not a member of the European Union. It is not a member of NATO, and it only became a full member of the United Nations in 2002. During the Second World War, this logic became even more concrete. Surrounded by Axis powers and Axis-controlled territories, Switzerland prepared for the possibility of invasion by turning its own landscape into part of its defense system. Roads, bridges, tunnels, and mountain routes were not only infrastructure. In certain cases, they were also treated as defensive elements, things that could slow an enemy down if the country were attacked. And behind all of this were the Alps. The mountains were not just scenery. They were part of the country's defense strategy. Under the plan known as the National Redoubt, Switzerland developed the idea of retreating into the mountains, protecting key routes, and, if necessary, cutting off access to make the country difficult to occupy, even if an invasion began. That mindset did not disappear after the war. It became part of a broader culture of preparedness. Even today, Switzerland is known for having shelter space for almost its entire population. According to official Swiss civil protection information, the country has around 370,000 public and private shelters, with space for about 9 million people. In other words, Switzerland has more shelter capacity than its population. This is the hidden side of Swiss stability. From the outside, Swiss peace can look effortless, but much of that peace was built through preparation, deterrence, discipline, and a refusal to become an easy country to pressure. Switzerland's perfection was never free. It was designed. But stability designed at this level does not remain abstract. Eventually, it shows up in the cost of everyday life. In modern Switzerland, that cost is no longer only about defense, bunkers, or military preparedness. It appears in rent, in insurance, in groceries, in the price of eating out, and in the basic question of whether you can actually afford to build a life there. Switzerland pays well, but it also asks a lot from anyone trying to live there. That is what makes the country difficult to understand from the outside. High wages are not just a sign of wealth. In Switzerland, they can also become the price of entry. Recent cost of living indexes keep pointing to the same pattern. Swiss cities are among the most expensive in the world. Health insurance is also a major monthly burden. Switzerland's Federal Office of Public Health says the average monthly premium for 2026 is 393.30 Swiss francs, with an average increase of 4.4% from the previous year. For a tourist, Switzerland's prices might feel like a shock that lasts a few days. For someone who lives there, they become part of everyday life. Rent, insurance, transport, food, childcare, everyday comfort, paid for month after month. At some point, the question is no longer just whether Switzerland is expensive. It is whether access to Swiss life itself has become expensive. One of the clearest examples of this is the people who cross the border to work there. Some workers live across the border, in places like France, Italy, Germany, and Austria, and commute into Switzerland for work. They are usually described as cross-border commuters. In Switzerland's French-speaking regions, they are often called frontaliers. The Swiss Federal Statistical Office publishes regular statistics on these workers, including those with G permits, showing that this is not a rare exception. It is a structural part of the Swiss labor market. For many of them, this arrangement can make economic sense, earning Swiss wages while living in places where housing and daily costs may be lower. But at the same time, it reveals a boundary. These workers are part of the Swiss economy, but they are not always fully inside Swiss life. They may earn Swiss wages, work for Swiss companies, and help keep the system running, while their homes, rent, families, and everyday lives remain outside the border. That is one of Switzerland's quiet contradictions. The country is not simply closed. It depends on people from outside. In the first quarter of 2026, Switzerland had 1.87 million employed people of foreign nationality, and 78.8% of them came from EU or EFTA countries, according to the Federal Statistical Office. But entering an economy is not the same thing as belonging to a society. Switzerland can offer opportunity, high wages, safety, stability, and order. But actually living inside that order, settling there, belonging there, feeling that the country is yours too, requires more than a job. It requires money, adaptation, patience, and for many people, the acceptance of a certain distance. This tension is not unique to Switzerland. Across Europe, migration has become tied to a larger debate about labor shortages, housing, public services, infrastructure, and integration. In many European countries, foreign workers have become part of the answer to aging populations and labor shortages in certain sectors. But when housing is already expensive and infrastructure is already under pressure, population growth can make existing problems feel sharper. Switzerland sits right inside that European tension, but with an even higher price of entry. And this tension is not just theoretical. On June 14, 2026, Swiss citizens are scheduled to vote on a popular initiative often referred to as No to a Switzerland with 10 million. The proposal would cap the permanent resident population at 10 million by 2050. Reuters reported that the proposal reflects concerns about immigration and its perceived strain on infrastructure, housing, and wages. The Swiss government opposes the proposal, warning that it could harm the economy and Switzerland's relationship with the European Union. That is the dilemma. Switzerland needs people from outside. But the more people want to enter, the more pressure builds inside. More workers mean more demand for housing, more pressure on infrastructure, and more anxiety over what the country is becoming. So the cost of Switzerland is not only measured in francs, it is also measured in access. Who gets to live close to the opportunity? Who has to commute toward it from outside? Who can afford to stay? And who can only admire the system from a distance? This is the human cost of a country that works almost too well. Its perfection does not only create comfort, it also creates a border between those who can live inside it and those who can only reach toward it. But none of this means Switzerland has failed. In many ways, it means the opposite. Switzerland works remarkably well. It is stable, wealthy, and safe by many standards. It has built a system that many countries would like to have. But that is exactly what makes the question harder. When a country works this well, it becomes desirable. And when it becomes desirable, more people want access to it. But if that access is limited by money, housing, borders, language, social distance, or political pressure, then the very system people admire starts to create its own gate. Switzerland may not feel unreachable because it is broken. It may feel unreachable because it works so well that living inside it has become a privilege. And maybe that is the deeper paradox. A country can be peaceful because it is prepared. It can be clean because order is protected. It can be wealthy because quality is expensive. It can depend on people from outside while still making belonging difficult. So the question is not whether Switzerland is good or bad. The question is harder than that. If a society looks almost perfect, but many people can only afford to admire it from the outside, then who is that perfection really for?